Hi, I'm Chuck Cravens. I'm a research historian and writer here at Air Corps Aviation in Bemidji. What we're talking about today is some of the history of Sierra SueII, a P-51 that has just recently been restored at that facility. Sierra SueII is a combat veteran, which is very rare, and she's also, we believe, one of the most original P-51s in existence. This is a map of Sierra SueI's travels from 1944 to 2015. The first thing I'm going to show you is a page from a book I'm finishing. This is from the rough draft of the book. It's a world map of places that Sierra SueII has been between 1944 and 2015. Sierra SueII is a Mustang built in 1944. She was accepted by the Army Air Force on November 25th, 1944 and delivered on the 27th of that month. Sierra SueII was built in Inglewood, California at the North American Aviation Plant, which is location 1 on the map. From there, she was flown with a couple of stops to Newark, New Jersey, where the wing was taken off the fuselage, and she was crated up for shipment by water to Europe. That's location number 2. She arrived in Europe, and her eventual destination was location number 3, which was an advanced landing ground, Y-32 Ophoven, near Zwartberg, Belgium. That was where Lieutenant Robert Bona was assigned Sierra SueII, and where she received her name and nose art. She flew some combat missions from there, but this was very near the end of the war in April of 1945. She moved on April 22nd, 1945 to location 4, Gütersloh, Germany, which is Advanced Landing Ground Y-99. She stayed there until the end of the war in May, flying her final combat mission on April 25th, 1945. The 402nd Squadron stayed in Germany for quite a while after the war, and the next stop for Sierra SueII was Sandhoven, which is location number 5 on the map. Sandhoven was Advanced Landing Ground Y-79. Advanced Landing Grounds were airfields that the Army Air Force either built or improved in order to keep up with the advancing troops as they moved across Europe. So that's why they have the name Advanced Landing Ground. After that, Sierra SueII was taken to Fritzlar, Germany, Advanced Landing Ground Y-86, which is location 6 on the map. Then Sierra SueII basically became surplus. She was taken to Fürth, Germany, location 7, to be stored with hundreds of other Mustangs, many of them brand new. The new and combat veteran Mustangs were taken to Advanced Landing Ground R-28 for storage, which is near Nuremberg. They're stored there for a number of years. Around that time, the Swedish Royal Air Force was looking to upgrade their equipment. The Swedish Air Force's mission before the war was primarily bombing, but as the threat from Soviet bloc countries developed after the war, air defense with fighters became the primary mission. Sweden bought Sierra SueII, well, they actually bought her in 1947, but they transferred her to Östersund, Sweden in June of 1948 by train. That's location number 8. There she was put back together and refurbished. Work was done to bring her up to airworthy standards. This was at an airbase named F4. F4 was also the name of the squadron base there. Airbase F4 was located on an island in the middle of Lake Storsland. In 1952, Sierra SueII was shipped to another unit, F8. That was location 9 near Stockholm, where she flew for a few years as an officer's time-building airplane and a squadron hack. In about 1953, Nicaragua began looking for Mustangs to expand their air force. Sweden was ready to transition their air force into jets, so Sierra SueII was sold to Nicaragua and moved to Malmö, Sweden, which is a port at location number 10, and then shipped to location 11, Managua, Nicaragua. There she stayed and flew in the Nicaraguan Air Force from 1954 to 1961, and then was parked in front of the Officers Club at Las Mercedes Air Base in Managua as a gate guard for about 10 more years. In 1971, a man named David Allender purchased Sierra SueII and shipped her fuselage to Miami, location 12, and her wings to San Francisco near his home. He actually drove out with a rental truck to retrieve the fuselage from Miami and trucked her back to location 13, which is Hayward, California. Modifications were done on the airplane in order to make an attempt on the world piston-powered airspeed record. The work was done at Hayward and also at location 14 in Stockton, California. However, the attempt was never actually made. She was purchased by Dr. Roger Kriskow, a Minneapolis area physician, and flown to be based at Flying Cloud Field in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Doc Christgau owned her for 34 years and flew her for most of that time. He was well known in air shows around the Midwest. Doc repainted the airplane in mainly U.S. Army Air Force colors, but with some of the Swedish markings on the right side because he was of Swedish heritage. So, on the right side of the airplane was the yellow K that was on her in Sweden when she was in F4, and the name Gull-Cal, which stands for yellow K in Sweden, on the right cowling. In 2011, Paul Allen purchased the airplane from Roger Christgau, and a send-off celebration was held in Austin, Minnesota, which is location 15. She was then disassembled and taken by truck to location 16, Bemidji, Minnesota, for restoration by Air Corps Aviation.
The plane left Austin, Minnesota, and who trucked it up here? Is that something Air Corps did, or?
No, the trucker was a car hauler guy from down in Austin, Minnesota, so we just contracted with him to haul the, it was actually two loads. One had the fuselage and the other load had the wing on it. And we shrink wrapped the fuselage just to try to keep any damage that happened to it on the trip up, keep it clean. And
you brought it right into the plant
Yep.
in Industrial Park?
Yep, brought it down to the industrial park, and we cut all the wrapping off of it because that kind of covered up a lot of the straps and stuff that we had holding it on the trailer.
Oh, sure.
And just unstrapped everything and backed it into the shop, and we used a combination of our forklift and a chain hoist to lift it off the trailer, and
pull the trailer off from underneath?
yeah, pulled the trailer out from underneath it and set it back down on the floor. It was in a stand that had wheels on it, so we had to reattach the wheels to the stand so we could move it around in the shop, and kind of start surveying the project, making a plan of where to start.
Now you have what's underneath here? This jig or something, or?
Yeah, just a transport stand that we had custom made to move the airplane. And during the war, when they shipped the airplanes overseas, they built a custom wood crate, and they'd do the same thing. They'd fly the airplane to wherever it was being shipped from, and they'd take the wing off and the propeller off, and they'd put it in this crate, which would be real similar to the size of a shipping container nowadays, and load it in that and shipped it by boat over to England or to the Pacific, whichever field it was going to.
Now this steel frame you had made here?
Yep, Roger Lyson, a local gentleman here in Bemidji, welded up the frame for us.
And you had a separate cover over the plexiglass to keep it?
Yeah, we put an extra blanket on that just for a little more padding in case another car threw a rock or something. We didn't want to take a chance of breaking a window.
Now you're moving it back into another room here? No.
Yeah, so in our shop, when we first started, it was a very small shop. So we weren't working, some of the project we didn't start on right away, so we had a storage area in the other half of the building, so we moved it back into that for the time being. Started taking a bunch of inventory of what we had. There was several boxes of small parts that had come out of the airplane originally when they tried to make it into an air racer back in the 70s. They stripped a lot of weight out of it, so a lot of the military equipment was pulled out of it, and so we were lucky to get those parts for the airplane, and so we reinstalled some of that just to kind of make sure that it all fit before we totally disassembled the airplane.
Was this an extra engine that came, or?
Yeah, and then there was a spare engine that came with the airplane that Roger had. There was the engine that was in it when he first flew the airplane, and then he bought a second engine from a gentleman in Minneapolis that was an engine overhauler, so that way he had a spare. Then there's you can see the wing on a trailer. We made some little custom cradles to fit under the wing to help support it, and strapped it down. So we did the same thing, backed it into the hangar, and used the forklift again to lift it off the trailer. And then on that we did have a stand for it also, but in the meantime we put it on its main gear, and we had a secondary wheel that goes back at the trailing edge of it, so you could leave it kind of in the normal horizontal position.
And then you had to start dismantling the airplane. Did you make the jigs first before you start dismantling?
Yep. So we went into the blueprints. There's no blueprint that tells you how to make a jig. You just kind of from past experience kind of know what it takes to make a fixture, and just go into the drawings and find the location of all the hinge points and attach points, and weld up a general frame, and then from there you make attachment pieces that bolt on, because when you weld things they move, and welds shrink, so you try not to build that into your jig. You try to build a stable structure and then bolt parts on from there. And so then the process was to start stripping paint and drilling structure apart, trying to identify what was good. And the airplane had sat outside in Nicaragua for many years, and there was a lot of corrosion that grew on the aluminum structure that made some parts unairworthy. So we had to replace those parts, and so that was kind of a major time-consuming process in the project. Basically, we drilled every rivet out of the airplane in the restoration process.
Now, and this is the spring when it came to Air Corps?
It came to Air Corps in I believe it was August of 2011 is when we started on the project, and then it ended up being just about exactly a 3-year process to complete the airplane. And we didn't work on it full time in the beginning. We had another project in the shop, or two other projects in the shop that we were working on. So it started off as kind of just a part-time until we completed the other projects.
Here's the Sierra Sioux-2's fuselage in the jig, starting to fit new skins to the original structure, and there's some cowling parts that we've reconditioned to save the originals as much as possible. We've also built a wing fixture to restore the wings in, and as you can see, need lots of tools to do these processes, so we have to keep them all organized.
Are all those tools pneumatic pounders or drills, or what are they?
Mostly rivet guns, yeah.
Now, why are there so many different types?
You need different size rivet guns for different size rivets.
Okay.
And here you can see the completed tail section of the airplane and the skin on it. You can see some of the stamping, the original Alcoa stampings. Most of the rivets in the fuselage we had to have made custom because we wanted to have them look like they did during World War II.
Now, what was different about the rivets? They were marked or something?
Yeah, modern rivets have their production manufacturer stamp, and the World War II ones didn't.
What are these cylinders in here?
These are the Lord engine mounts, Lord mounts.
Lord mount, okay.
They're cushion. They're the vibration isolators. There's two here, and then there's 3 more on each side up at the front.
Is the engine here yet?
No. Engine probably won't be here till the spring sometime.
Now, what's the goal on this one here?
The goal is to restore this airplane, to reuse as many parts as we can that were original to this airplane. We're trying not to replace things if we don't need to. We replace parts that need replacement to make the airplane airworthy.
For someone like me, I wouldn't recognize the parts that are original.
Yeah, it's you can tell by some of the parts have some erosion, some wear, like this.
It looks like new.
Yeah, and a lot of the original parts are going to have like North American stamps that you'll see on them.
Okay.
See if I can find one and show you.
Okay.
You'll see little stamps on different parts that were original parts. They usually stamped with these little. They had lots of different types of stamps, but these ones say North American Aviation on them. Asked me about this, or you were videoing me last time. I just finished it today. So this smile, this assembly goes right up here.
Okay. Are all these parts going to be zinc chromated or left like they are?
No. Well, let's see. The engine mount, actually, this piece goes on the front of the engine mount, and all the way back is going to get painted dark green again. So this is how it looked when it originally went together, and then they sprayed the whole thing down green with zinc chromate. So yes, this engine mount will be dark green.
What's the yellow piece here?
Well, this is a piece of armor plate, and
This must have been a sensitive part of the engine to keep it covered for...
Yep. A reservoir would sit right behind there. Plus, they wanted this guarded, so if bullets were coming at them around the spinner, they wouldn't zing over the cowling and go towards the pilot as well.
Now, when you say reservoir, what?
It's a engine coolant reservoir.
Okay.
Right behind you. This is all armor plate here too, around on the firewall, and this is a cutout, and this is a stainless steel pan that's cut out for the oil tank. The oil tank sits here, so that's why this is kind of dished in there.
Why is it stainless steel? Corrosion from
corrosion preventative, yeah. Okay. And firewalls are usually stainless steel in case you do have a fire that lasts a little longer than typical. And we also have a piece of armor plate right up in there. And that says face. It says face on it. I don't know if you can see in there.
No.
This is the canopy, and so we're working on riveting this together. So we've shot these rivets, every other rivet. Now we came in here and countersunk these rivets, and we're going to shoot these.
What's the yellow tape for?
Yeah, yellow tape is just called rivet tape, and we stick that over a loose rivet. So we stick a rivet in the hole, and then that holds it there, and then when we shoot it with our rivet gun, it doesn't leave marks on the aluminum.
Got it.
There's some more small details, the back side of the firewall. The wings, before they were restored, we had get the jig built, then put the wings in it, and then tore them apart. That way we could make sure everything fit before we disassembled them.
Now, who made the jig?
The main part of the jig was made by a local craftsman, and then our machinist Dan made all the custom attach points to finish it.
Now you gave him the specifications for the jig?
Yep, we drew up the general shape of what we wanted, and he made that frame.
Now, what are all these parts labeled here?
All the parts here, these are the mounts that hold the engine in, mostly firewall forward parts, part of the induction system. Just have to have shelves and places to keep things so you know what you have and keep it organized.
So each part goes under its own label so you know where it is.
Yep, North American did a really good job of organizing the airplane into sub-assemblies and sections, and so that we follow that to keep it organized.
Now, when you had the jigs made, did you have something to go by from North American for the jigs?
Yeah, we have copies of the original manufacturing blueprints, and of course it doesn't tell you how to make a jig, it just gives you locations of points, and so we design our own jigs to those points. Here they're working on fuselage, putting the seat brackets in. And,
okay. Now, is that the tail section I was looking at?
There was a tail section that was for a different airplane.
Oh, okay. All right.
Here, Chad is working on skin for the part of the airplane we call the doghouse. It's the lower section of the airplane that holds the oil cooler right ahead of the radiator. So he's trimming the skin to the final shape. Here we're working on the exit, we call exit duct. It's aft of the radiator, so there's a door that controls the airflow. Like in your car, a thermostat controls the water temperature on the Mustang. They control the water temperature with airflow, so they have a variable door that lets more or less air through it.
That's the piece that's hanging below the aircraft?
Yes.
Okay. Is there more than one door on that? Or
there are two doors. One door controls the air through the radiator for cooling water, and there's one also for cooling the oil.
Oh, okay. Is this part of it here?
Yeah, and that's the structure. It's upside down in the fixture here, just because we find that's the easiest way to build it.
Now, did you have to build all the pieces on that, or could you use some of the existing metal?
We used quite a bit of the original structure on mainly structure. Skins we replaced because over time there was a lot of surface damage to the skins. It just didn't leave a nice finish to it, and we wanted to leave it as a bare metal airplane.
Now, being a bare metal airplane, was that the owner's choice?
Yeah.
Not paint?
Yeah, it was a little combination between us and the owner. Wanted to make it as accurate as we could to, what it would have looked like at the end of World War II. So, it should have a little bit of rash to it, but not an excessive amount.
Oh, okay.
And here, Chad and Ryan, they're working on either the scoop and part of the engine cowling.
It's called a covered assembly, but it's also nicknamed the doghouse. And it goes directly ahead of the radiator on the bottom of the airplane. So it's in between the exit duct and the scoop. So the airflow comes through here for the radiator, and then right here sits the oil cooler right up in here. So.
And this is for the 51, right?
It is. The Sue's doghouse.
Okay.
Yep, so we're restoring it back to original. It's getting new outer skins and a few new ribs in it. They had to replace some stuff. So it's bent up and cracked.
Here, Ty's pressing some parts apart. Can't quite tell exactly what he's working on, but got many different hydraulic presses. And here you can see this is the table that we use to lay out all of our markings on the skins.
Did you put the labels on there?
Yep. So we take one side of the aluminum and add the labels. Here's some auxiliary drop tanks that they put on the wings during the war. We collected quite a few of those. The main fuselage, got most of the major structure done now. And,
this is the engine mount we're looking at?
Yep, the main engine mount. The mounts that hold the engine in aren't in it yet, but that's the basic structure that holds it on there.
Now, did you have to rebuild that from scratch, or could you use what was there?
Yeah, same with that. Pretty much every piece of the airplane, we took all the rivets out of it, and there was some major corrosion in the main beams in it. We had to have replaced. Here's one of our milling machines. We use it to make parts or repair parts. The part that Dan has in the machine here is what we call a tailwheel spindle housing. It's where the tailwheel pivots on, and over years, the bores that hold it together get stretched and elongated. And so what he's done is he's bored it out a little bit bigger, and we made custom sleeves and pressed in there, and then remachined them to the correct size so that everything's nice and tight like it would have been when it was new.
Just to run that machine looks like a skill unto itself.
Yeah, Dan went through 2 years of a tech school training. You get an associate degree, and he's really sharp with the machine. And a lot of machinists, they either know how to program, or they know how to run the machine, or draw the part. And Dan, he does all three very well.
That's got to be extremely precision, then, computer run machine like this.
Yeah, I don't know what the tolerance is on the machine exactly, but I think it's down to a tenth of a thousandth or something. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's very accurate.
What are you working on?
Oh, I'm trying to update my bill of materials. Make sure I got everything on here that it says I'm supposed to have. Piece by piece. Get it all figured out. Part we call the trim console in the airplane. It houses the landing gear control and all of the elevator rudder.
What's all the paper behind it?
All the paper is blueprints of the individual parts, just to kind of keep an idea of
Okay.
where they're at and what they're supposed to look like.
Where do these blueprints come from?
We've bought them from individuals all around the country. There's a host of them out there, and we keep collecting, trying to find the best prints available.
Now we're getting back to the jigs again here.
Yeah, this is an aileron that we've got disassembled. That you can see kind of what it looked like inside when we first took it apart, and trying to determine what parts to reuse and which pieces to replace. It had a repair done to it that wasn't exactly very pretty. Yeah, this is the door that covers the fuel cell in the bottom of the wing.
This is interesting, this jig.
Yeah, this jig is the one to build the main fuselage in, and here is sitting in a cart to carry it around in the shop. So you can see the fuselage jig, how we've laid. This is you have a cast aluminum plate that's machined, so it's very flat, and the little shims around it. What we've done is we've put a filler underneath there, and we shim the plate and then let the filler set up to make the plate perfectly level. And that gives us a reference plane to measure. If we need to measure any surface vertically from there, we've got a point of reference.
This holds the wing then?
This fixture holds the wing. And this is when it's just partially finished. There's another section that goes in the middle that holds the center part of the wing.
What am I looking at here? This shiny steel or aluminum, what is it?
What this is a wing jig for the P-51 Mustang.
A wing jig?
Wing jig.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is going to hold the wing for when we drill it apart and reassemble it. And so what you're looking at here is an aluminum plate that's flat. It's a flat aluminum plate. That's what everything's going to be based off of.
Okay.
Back together.
That's why I see you got a level on there and a laser. That has to be exactly flat, exactly level?
It's as flat as we can get it. Yep.
Okay, now you have two of them. Is that one for each wing?
Yep. So this is going to be the left wing, and that's going to be the right.
That'll be for the right wing. Okay. Now, why do you have the wooden shims in here?
The wooden shims are to get the plate level, because right now there's glue underneath the plate, and so put shims on there to get the plate level, and then once the glue dries, pull the shims out.
Level with respect to the frame or the floor? The frame. The earth.
Yeah.
And doesn't that depend on where the feet of the jig sit also?
Well, kind of. The plates are level, like, to the world.
Okay.
They're level and flat. So it doesn't matter where the frame is, because I level the plates.
Okay. Okay, got it. Now I understand. Thank you. Now, based on what I see, because this is leveled out for this exact position, you can't move this jig at all until the wings are done?
No, we won't move the jig until the wings are finished. Because if we move the jig, then it'll change. We don't want it to change.
Okay, so right now it's sitting in this exact spot. It's perfectly level as long as you don't move it.
Right.
More pictures of the jig. You can see we've got a laser and a precision level setup.
What was the big vertical?
The vertical part, that helps hold the center plate between the wing and lines up the main wing attach points. There's another fixture for the rudder of the airplane. So basically every major structure of the airplane, we had to build a steel fixture to hold it. Just kind of a general layout of the shop at the time. More detail. This is more of the cover that covers the bottom side of the fuel cell. You pull that big panel off the wing. It had a whole bunch of nut plates, blind holes that you can thread a bolt into to open the wing up to get the tank out. And so if the tank got a hole shot in it during combat, then you got home and pulled the tank out.
Is that for that cockpit cover? I've seen bucking bars, but nothing like this before.
This is our cart that we have, that we keep all of what we call bucking bars. They're steel bars that you use to drive rivets with.
Why so many?
There's so many different angles and little places you have to get to. You have to make custom ones all the time. The green that was on them was tape to protect from scratching the paint. This is our inspection station for Zyglow, they call it. It's a dye penetrant to check for cracks in parts. So there's different chemicals you need for that.
Now this is the wing that's coming apart?
Yep. So here he's fitting up the last of the fittings to attach things to. In the process, it takes lots of cleaning. So we have several different blasting machines, some with glass beads, some with plastic, depending on the part you're cleaning, what level of care it needs. And so there's a mechanical blasting, and then there's also just cleaning and polishing. So here, Ryan, he's got a cowling that was an original cowling that we're saving, so we're trying to clean the surface and make it look more like it did original. So here we're kind of polishing it a little bit.
What part is this? Where's it go?
The upper right-hand engine cowl.
Upper right-hand engine cowl?
Yep.
Okay.
Just the inside of it. We're just trying to make it look like it looked back in 1945.
Here Dan's working on the mount that holds the main casting and wing that holds the landing gear. So the big shaft is simulating the pivot point of the gear, and it's real critical to get that accurate so that the landing gear is in the right position in the wing. And most people in the warbird world that have restored P-51s don't put this part in, they just rely on other things, and we decided we needed to make it more accurate.
What kind of alignment are you doing here?
What's that?
What kind of alignment are you doing here?
Well, I'm putting that thing in position. It's a fixture to hold the landing gear casting.
What part is the plate is?
No, this plate is just for aligning this fixture. If you go to the other side, you can see this fixture is on there.
Yeah. Okay.
What that's for is to locate where the landing gear casting is on the wing.
Okay. Now that piece is for the landing gear.
What's that?
What is this piece, the cylinder for?
It simulates the landing gear.
Simulates the landing
Yep.
gear, okay.
Ready? Yep. Ready? Ready? Good.
What's the tape to keep the fuselage from being marred?
Yeah, it's a no mar tape.
Okay.
Keeps marks off of the shiny metal.
Here's more detail of the engine bay. It looks like a big cavernous area, but by the time you're done, it really fills up.
This is a flow chart to show where you are or where you need to go.
Yeah, that is a chart developed by North American and how they assembled the airplane in what sequence. And so basically we've printed that off and we're following the same sequence. We try to get all the small sub-assemblies done first, get them done and put on a shelf, and then when they're ready, then they can go into the structure. So basically it's like building a house. You have to build the structure first and then you put in all the details. So That's kind of the reason that.
And that's
it's
why
all-
there's so many shelves with all these parts around.
Yeah, and then they divide it into sections of the airplane, whether the power plant, wing, fuselage, and so we've done the same thing on our inventories, try to keep everything organized. So if you need to look for a part, you know where to find it.
That's got to take a lot of storage space to have
Yeah, it
laid
does.
out like this.
Yeah, so our warehouse space is almost as big as the shop, just to keep the small parts organized. And a lot of things, there's different processes. So when you take apart a structure, you have to send some stuff out for special inspection, especially like here the engine. We don't do engine overhauls, so that was one of the first things we did was we sent the engine to a engine overhaul facility, and this one was happened to be done by Roush Aviation out of Livonia, Michigan. And you think of Roush is he's the guy that also does NASCAR, so he has two P-51s himself, and started as a hobby rebuilding his own engines and turned it into a business.
Is anybody else doing these kind of engines?
Oh yeah,
Along?
yeah.
Is it-
There's many people.
Okay.
And here the wing is going back together in the fixture, drilling up new skins, and so.
Now, one of the questions that people who don't run a shop is why pneumatic drills versus electric drills?
Yeah, pneumatics are kind of the way to go. You have one source, the air compressor, and it runs all the tools in the shop. So whether it's a drill or a shaver, a grinder, or a rivet gun. So.
Do you think you have better control with that?
Yeah. And
It's smaller.
Yeah. A lot during World War II, they did use a lot of electrics. If you see in the factory for drills, but they were, 20 pounds a piece, so way too heavy. Today, you can get a really lightweight pneumatic drill.
Now, did you have the stencils made here or made someplace else, and you brought them in and put them on?
No, those we just went from the blueprints and tried to, or not the blueprints, but the original photos, tried to find dimensions. Had to do a little scale work, and
Could you have that cut here by the local sign shop? Or you?
oh, you could, but this is pretty basic, so it's just to lay it out by hand with masking tape, which is what they would have done during the war. They didn't have vinyl stencils and all that fancy stuff, so we tried to do it that way just so that you could see that it wasn't that done that way.
Now you see everything's wrapped up with plastic when you're done for a while. That's just to keep the dust off, or is there a particular reason?
Well, in that photo, they're actually getting ready to paint the letters on the side of the airplane, so we're just masking it up so it could go into the paint booth and get painted.
Well, you got to have lunch at some time. What's the clock say? I couldn't read it.
More details of the structure, and you see some parts are primed and some are not. And basically, when we took the airplane apart, we put colored zip ties on every piece that we took apart, so we'd understand which color the factory put on the part, and tried to keep that the same as much as possible.
So you're going to extreme detail to make it absolutely the same as it was in 1945 or better.
Yep. And so even on the aluminum, you see the stamps from the manufacturer stamps. We can tell which side the aluminum was on.
What all the stamps are for? The hand
Yeah,
stamps.
and all the hand stamps, they're just ink stamps. There's different inspector stamps. There's a lot of markings or placards that need to go on the outside of the airplane and some on the inside of the airplane. So we had all of those replicated, and so all you have to do is touch them on your ink pad and stick them on the airplane. It's a
And
quick way to
What
mark.
makes the ink stick to the aluminum? Special ink?
They had there are some self-etching inks. I don't believe we used a self-etching ink on this project. But.
So those are the same kind of stamps that were used in 1944 then?
Yep, and that's the way they did that. You could have had a sticker or something, but a stamp is really quick. You just touch the pad, touch the material, and you're done.
It's
And
there.
that was the whole thing during the war, was try to get things done as fast as possible.
This wing looks like it's wrapped in fiberglass, or plastic.
Yeah, that was just a shrink wrap plastic just to kind of protect it from dust and fingerprints.
And this chart here?
Yeah, it's kind of one of our to-do lists. Always trying to look way ahead and find out what needs to get done next.
What am I looking at here?
So these are the start of our vertical stabilizer for our C model Mustang, which is our next project. We actually bought the vertical stabilizer. It was in one piece, and we drilled it apart and are starting to restore the parts. starting to put it back together.
What's the difference between this and the one you're doing now?
The C model was an earlier version Mustang, identical to the B model Mustang, except the C models were made in Houston, Texas, instead of Inglewood, California. So,
Okay.
Hope Slope, that's the name of that one.
What do you call
Of
it?
the C model. Hope Slope.
Hope Slope is what they, somebody someone labeled
Lope. Is it Lope's Hope? One of the two.
something like that.
Yeah.
Here are the two major assemblies sitting in the shop, the wing and the fuselage. We've had them bolted together and taken back apart to fit things. The wing is sitting on some jacks at the moment. At this point we were getting ready to put the landing gear in, fitting hydraulic lines, kind of doing those items that are easier to do while it's apart and in this position.
Is this a door section?
Yeah, landing gear door.
Here's a view of the wing. You can see a lot of the flight control systems. The wiring is going in at this point. Fuel cells are already installed. Working on wiring in the gun bays. Small parts being installed to mount the guns. And paint work's all done. Now it's just time to bolt the good stuff on.
The yellow tube in the front of the aircraft for the coolant, why is it around the front of the engine?
It's an expansion tank for the coolant system, so you can only fill it. You can't fill it as full as the engine needs, so you have to. There's tubes inside of it that hold the water up in the heads of the engine. So it's kind of a real important part of the airplane.
Is there a reason why it's mounted in front like that?
Well, that's where the water comes out of the engine. The hot water comes out in front of the engine and then goes into the tank and then back to the engine.
Okay.
So as you can see, there are many little tiny pieces in the airplane, and they all need to have a special color. So here, painting up the we call this the eyeball. It's a part that goes around the end of the machine gun. And in the pictures during the war, we can tell that they had custom painted these parts red just as an accent to make it look cool. These are the fuel tanks. They're a self-sealing fuel tank. They're the originals from the airplane.
Is it hard to find? Did you have to put new ones in?
No, we were able to reuse the original tanks that were in it. During the war, they're not bulletproof. They're just self-sealing. So a bullet would go through it, but then the rubber would expand and seal the hole to get you home.
Big. What am I looking at here?
These are more just riveting tools, squeezer sets and rivet sets, and so there's many different styles of rivets and sizes. So you need a different tool for each type of rivet. So it's a pretty big
Who
investment.
takes the time to put all these things in a box and label them, and all these parts in the? That looks like it's very time-consuming.
Yeah, we have a couple people on the staff that just handle parts inventories. You know, whether it's nuts and bolts hardware stuff or rivets or tools, and it just takes a lot of time to organize all that.
Oh gosh, did they organize all the tools too in those boxes and
Yeah.
label them?
Yep.
So you can find them.
There's more detail of the wing before the hydraulic lines and fuel lines go in.
No, I think that's fine. The way they work, I just got the forks closer to it.
Okay, the process today looks like we're hanging the airplane, or lifting the airplane up. Why are we doing this?
Well, we wanted to do a final fit of the fuselage and the wing at the shop before we took it to the airport. So here we rented an extra forklift, and so basically we used two forklifts and lift the fuselage out of the stand. You see the factory photos, they had an overhead crane that they moved the fuselage around in, and of course we don't have that luxury, so we just do it with two forklifts, pick the wing up, or the fuselage up, excuse me, and then we have little car moving dollies we put under the wheels on the wing, and once the fuselage is lifted high enough, we roll the wing under and set the fuselage on it.
Now, once you get this up and on its wheels, are you done with this jig? Can you push it out of the way?
Yep, so that's just a transport cart, so we just push it out of the way. and then we'll obviously put it back in there to take it to the airport once we're finished. So this fit up, we're putting it together to finish fitting the hydraulic lines between the fuselage and the wing, connecting all the controls. We actually rigged all the control surfaces, made up all the wiring connections. So basically anything that would attach the two pieces together we finished at this point. So just like North American did when you take it to ship the airplane, which we had to ship it from our shop, which is about 8 miles from the airport. So we take it back apart. Well, to make it quicker, when you get back to where you're going to assemble the airplane to fly it, then all you have to do is just bolt it back together. You don't have to spend a bunch of time manufacturing parts or custom fitting things. So we did that all at the shop where the majority of our tools are at.
Makes it faster and easier. So you're going to fasten it completely to the airplane like it was going to be flying tomorrow, and then dismantle it and take it to the airport?
Yep. So like there's the other parts that we don't have finished at this point of the project, the gear doors for the landing gear, the wing fairings, and all those kind of things take an enormous amount of time to finish and fit. And we try to fit things to make them nicer, or at least as good as better than what the factory had done. And that's kind of what people expect of these airplanes nowadays, just like in car restorations. The term over-restored is one that we tried not to do. It's very hard, being the type of people we are, just like in the car world. You can restore a car and go way over the top and make it nicer than the factory ever did, but that's not authentic. And so that's always the challenge in these restorations, is trying to make it accurate and not overdo it. So it's a real fine balance.
Now in this particular case here, so hook up all the hydraulics and controls, and then when that's done, you take it back apart again.
Yep.
To the airport. Now
Yep.
you have to do the landing gear doors. You do that at the airport, or you do it in the shop?
We did it in the shop. That was one of the items we wanted to have finished before we took it to the airport, because, like you say, it's the doors. We had to put new outside skins on them because they'd had some damage and wear from years of use. And our spot welding machine is at the airport, or at the shop. So instead of taking parts and driving back and forth between the airport and the shop, it's just easier to finish as much as possible at the shop, and then take it apart and transport it.
Do you test the landing gear up and down while it's up on this?
Yeah.
How do you do that? You can't
Yeah.
sit on the wheels.
Once it's bolted together, we put the airplane back up on jacks, and that way you can run the landing gear up and down. We have a custom-made stand for the tail of the airplane, so once it's up on jacks, we can put the tail up in a stand so it's sitting basically level, and all the wheels are off the ground, so you can move anything on the airplane that you need to move.
So when you're done, the landing gear doors fit exactly the way you want.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Because the inboard leading edge of the wing, the way it's built from the factory, is somewhat adjustable, and so we wanted to get it exactly where we wanted it before we went on to all the other details.
Now later on, it's going to probably show putting it on a truck. I forgot. Does it sit on its wheels when it's on the truck to go to the airport?
Yeah, when we took it to the airport, we left it on the wheels, and there's a little stand at the trailing edge of the wing, and so we just set it on the truck like that. Puts a strap over the wheel like you have for transporting your car. They have the special strap that fits over the wheel. We put those on and strapped it down, and then there's actually tie-down rings on the wing of the airplane that, for sitting out in the wind, where you can tie onto it. So we hook straps to that to hold it on the trailer. And it's a very short distance to the airport, so we took the back road, so we didn't have to go very fast.
Now this is a lifting. This hole here is designed to put a bar in to lift the aircraft.
Yep. Yeah. There's
It's a factory design.
Yep. There's a pipe that goes through the airplane at that point that's made to slide a bar through, either to lift it or to tie it down. So we use it for both of those things. Here we're putting it in our custom stand to.
Now he's putting that around so it doesn't slide one way or the other.
Yep. Just clamps the tube to the stand.
One on each side, so he can't slide that.
Yep.
If the aircraft had been moved, then the jig and all holding the tail would go together.
Right. And we have some caster wheels on the bottom of the stand so that if you want to roll it around in the shop, you can just set it right on the main wheels, and then the stand you can push it any direction you want to reposition it. We also use that stand out at the hangar now in maintenance. Just makes it so much easier to. We have a chain hoist on a beam on the ceiling, so we can lift the tail of the airplane, put the stand under it, and then roll it around in the hangar if you want to put it back in the corner. And then it makes it so much nicer working in the cockpit because it's a tail dragger, and so of course it's sitting down low on the tail. So if you're in the cockpit trying to work on stuff, you're always continually sliding to the back, and your tools and your nuts and bolts all roll away. So to have it level is just so much easier to work on.
Now, when you do an annual on one of the P-51s, you do the same thing, put it on this tail jack?
Yep.
Keep it level to work on?
Yep. And makes it nice, like here, you know, you're working underneath it. That way you're not down on a creeper. You can actually sit on a scooter and run under there and work on stuff. Makes life a lot easier.
Now he was bolting it together at the bottom, and he's taking the lift. Well, you're going to use the lift again, aren't you, to pick it up and pull the wing off?
Yep, eventually. But for now, we're going to take we made this spreader bar to lift the engine section of the airplane. So we'd take that back off because we were going to go ahead and fit the rest of the cowlings. The very lower cowling matches up to the wing, and that's always a real difficult part to finish on the airplane. And so that was one of the main reasons to put it together, was the fairings and the cowlings and the gear doors to fit all those sections. So here that you can see there's like a big hole in the bottom of the airplane under the engine. So now we'll fit all those parts in there, make sure it all aligns, and then take it back apart to ship it to the airport.
Now that's important to have the wing on to do that, to make sure they coincide?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. There's, these airplanes were built, mass production. There is a little bit of adjustability built into them, but not a lot. And so, we want to make sure that there's some parts in there that we made new that we want to make sure that it all lines up. So a lot of times you'll buy a part from somebody and they say it's a P-51 part and it looks like a P-51 part, but when you go to fit it to the airplane, it doesn't fit like a P-51 part. So
what do you do in that case? You have to make a new one, machine it out, or you make a new one?
Make new parts if we have to.
Okay. This is high-speed wing going on. Somebody inside here shot with a GoPro camera. This probably runs for about 15 seconds.
This would look like the speed that you'd see them doing it at the factory.
Yeah, right.
We're a little slower than the factory. So. This process, whole project of the airplane from when it showed up at our facility to get restored was approximately 3 years. Not completely full-time, but many, many man-hours.
Well, I have to assume here now the wing has been removed from the fuselage, probably getting ready to get it out to the truck.
Yep, so this is the moving day for taking the wing to the airport. Kind of hard to see in pictures, studying it. There's more parts that have been installed on it, while it was bolted together. And so now we finally determined, well, it's time to move it. There's still more to do. It would have been nice to finish more of it, even at the shop, than we did, but it finally comes to a time where you need to get it to the airport and get it bolted together and just start finishing stuff. We envisioned actually putting hydraulic fluid in it and running the landing gear up and down and doing all that at the shop, but then we started thinking that, well, once we take it back apart, then we're going to have hydraulic fluid coming out and making a mess. And so it's like, well, at this point we decided, well, we'll get it to the airport and then we'll do those things there. All the hydraulic lines had been fit though, so and all of our cylinders, we've leak checked them and all that before we put them in, so there shouldn't be much of a hydraulic issues. So here we're attaching a fixture that we built for the landing gear to sit in, to keep it from rolling. This fixture, we've made it so it telescopes, so you can use it for multiple different airplanes. That way there's a pocket and you set the wheel in. It's kind of like a fixed wheel chock, basically. So they're bolting it down to the deck of the trailer.
Now we're back on that same jig you used before.
Right.
The jig and all will go on. Well, first they're putting the wing on, I guess.
Yep.
Now the jig will stay on the fuselage when it goes on the truck.
Right. Yep. So here they're bringing the truck in. Then we'll just lift the wing with the forklift, set it up on the trailer, and strap it down and send it to the airport.
Wasn't there some concern about the wing catching the wind and moving a little?
Not really. We took the back road, so we didn't get more than 30 miles an hour, and had an escort by the sheriff's department. Not for the wing, but for the fuselage. The tail we left on it, and it's approximately 13 feet wide, so we needed to get permits and an escort for that. The wing is right about at the maximum limit to go down the road without a wide load permit.
And did it hang over the trailer? Ways?
The wing, yeah, the right wing, as he's putting it on here, hangs off the aft end of the trailer just a little bit. But it's the wingspan is 37 feet, and so it's pretty close to staying over the trailer. So here they're going to lower the wing on, and you can see the wheels will go into the pockets on that the bar there.
I think they make a beef up for the small wheel. Once they get that in place.
Yeah, so we decided we didn't want to have all the weight sitting on the wheel, so we took it off and we put a beam under it and screwed the beam down, and that way we had a place to chain it down to the deck.
Yep.
Here he's hooking up the straps to the tie down point on the wing, made to tie the airplane down in a windstorm type of thing. So
now the wrappers on the wheel, that's a standard car type of wheel wrapper?
Yep. Special strap made for putting a car on a car dolly.
Okay.
The wheels are a little bit bigger on the airplane than the car, so it didn't fit exactly perfect, but it's good enough to get the job done. The truck and trailer we rented from a local construction company. It's kind of odd when you see airplane parts on trailers going down the road. It's pretty different. You get a lot of weird looks at people.
Well, if you're an aviation enthusiast, you would stop and look and wonder where it's going.
Yeah.
And maybe follow it. How'd you end up in Industrial Park versus any other place to go? Just buildings were available?
Yep, buildings were available. One of the main things too was we were able to just rent what we needed in the beginning, and then eventually we bought the complete complex that we were in. And the major factor is the power requirements we need for our machinery. It has we have 483 phase there, which at the airport there was none of that available. If we wanted it, we would have had to pay tens of thousands of dollars to have that put in at the airport. So that was a major factor to try to keep the cost down.
I didn't know what's this thing is 480.
Yeah, there's many different voltages, but that's the one that a lot of our machines use.
Like the milling machine, something like that.
Right.
I didn't know it took that much power.
Yeah, and so the milling machine, some of them have a 20 horse motor on it. Well, that burns a lot of electricity, and the higher voltage in a 3-phase motor is way more efficient than running on a lesser voltage. So here they're backing into the main hangar, or the hangar at the airport. So backed it under the yellow beam on the ceiling is a I-beam that we had engineered that we can lift 16,000 pounds with on the beam. So put the chain hoist on there, and we can hook to whatever we need to hook to lift it. So that way on the beam you can slide the chain hoist one direction and then just move the whatever you have here with the truck fore and aft to get in the right position.
Yeah, you have better control using hand pull chain versus an electric winch?
Yeah, you can do a lot finer job with a chain than you could with electric.
Just got to keep the chain away from the edge of the wing.
That's the challenge, not to scratch the paint.
Wouldn't take much with a chain.
Yeah. So here we just, instead of trying to lift it high enough to drive the truck out from under it with the advantage of the beam, you could just lift it enough to get it off the trailer, slide it over on and set it back on the floor. Here you can see the chain hoist is a two-man operation. One guy to pull on the chain and one guy to keep it from scratching stuff. We moved the wing on I believe it was on a Thursday. In the late afternoon, we got it to the hangar, and then the following day we loaded the fuselage and took it to the airport. With the wide load permit, I believe we couldn't move it on the weekend. So.
For the traffic?
Yeah.
Was there a certain time of the day you could move it on?
They didn't really give us a specific time of day. There was some construction going on just south of where our shop is. We had to take a different route to get around that. So here's the next morning. We're getting ready to bring the fuselage out of the shop. The only issue here is that the tail is wider than the door. So we have to kind of go through on a little bit of an angle, get one side out first, and then slide it sideways a little bit, and then pull it all the way through the door. So here's the same trailer, and we left it on the stand, and so we just put a couple timbers under to support the weight of it.
When you first see this, you say, "Uh-oh, it's not going to make it." Of course, when you're standing there, it's quite obvious.
So here we get the one side to go through, and we slowly work it over to.
I've seen them take airplanes out of hangars where they put the wing through first because the airplane inside is in the way, and they walk it out in pieces. Yep. Now, once you're through, you can just roll it.
Yep.
You have to concern yourself, is it downhill and it might get away on you?
No, there is a pipe buried in the floor right at the edge of the door, of course, to keep the rain out. So that's always a challenge to get the wheels of the cart up and over that. So that's what we're up against here.
How do you do it? Do you have to lift it?
I can't remember exactly how we did it. Yep, looks like they're going to get the forklift.
I was going to pull it. Now, once this airplane comes out of the hangar, or the shop, I should say, and is trucked down to the airport, is there something else going in the shop right behind this? Another airplane, or?
Yep. So this project, a lot of us from the shop went to the hangar to help finish it, and so in the meantime, the guys that work in the machine shop and the parts guys started organizing the next project, which happens to be another P-51, an earlier version, C model version. So now that the shop, it isn't exactly empty, but the major project's out of there, so we start organizing for the second project.
Now, what's the difference between the C model and this Sierra Su 2 here?
Well, the major difference is the cockpit canopy.
Okay.
The early version airplane, a lot of people refer to it as a razorback or a high back, so it has a different window setup. Well, they decided for visibility for the pilot that to lower the top of the airplane and put a bubble canopy, so they call it an all-view or all-vision. I can't remember the exact term they called it, but it gave the pilot much better visibility. The only minor drawback to it is it was slower than the early airplane.
Just because of the windshield?
Well, because of the shape of the canopy with the big bubble, it makes a lot of drag, and so a lot of the pilots in World War II preferred the earlier airplane because it was faster. But then they also had a modification they called the Malcolm hood, which was a semi-bubble canopy built in England, and it was modified to a lot of the earlier B and C model Mustangs. So here, when we load the fuselage, we did similar to when we loaded the wing and fuselage in the shop just for the test fitting. We had to rent the forklift again, big forklift to pick up the heavy end of the airplane, and we used our smaller forklift on the tail. So we just kind of came up to the side of it the same way we did in the other process, lifted it, and just drove forward and set it down on the trailer.
If you wanted to, could you have lifted with a crane, just one and two lifting points, and use a crane to pick it up?
You can. There are drawings, you know, for the sling to lift this section of the airplane. The problem is now you have to go hire a crane to come in, and then you lose control of it yourself. You know, you're put in the hands of an operator that maybe you know or don't know. You know, and how well is he gonna handle it? So here, if we damage it, it's our fault. So that's.
Now, how did you know which road to go down to get to the airport? Did somebody go ahead of time and check the road out, or DOT tell you, or?
Yeah, I think, of course, we know all the different routes around, and that was when they applied for the permit. That was the route that they told us they wanted to take. We kind of wanted to take it right up Highway 2, which is kind of the main highway through town, but problem there is, of course, you know, we didn't want to go at 65 miles an hour. We wanted to take our slow, so then you have to deal with traffic, and being a wide load, it was just better to take the back roads and
no. Going slower, you have more control, and you got lots of time to get there.
Yeah. The biggest thing you have to watch for, of course, with having the tail on it is wires. And, there was no issues with that.
Any issues of cars passing this and maybe throwing up a stone or something, or it's sitting too high on the platform?
Yeah, it's too high, you know, for cars. You know, the only major concern you'd have is for passing other trucks, and that was part of the reason we had the escort, you know, from the sheriff's department. People saw him coming first, then they moved over to the side of the road and let us go by.
Okay.
So here it's kind of a little bit of a dance. You have to get both forklifts going at the same time to move it sideways, and that's the.
How do you synchronize that? You have to look at each other?
Yep, just one guy takes the lead and the other guy follows. It's just like flying formation in airplanes. You know, the one guy that follows always it's all he does is keep his eye on the guy that's ahead of him.
So that's the person in the front of the engine?
Yep.
Okay. And the lift in the tail follows the front.
Yep.
Okay.
So all we'll do here is we'll set it down on the beams. The main reason for the beams is we didn't want it to ride on the caster wheels. So if you go over rough spots in the road and worry about breaking a wheel on the caster, now that it's loose and tips. So to set on the beam, it's more solid, and then we went ahead and hooked straps. Another good reason to leave it in the stand is now we don't have to run straps over parts of the airplane. It's bolted to the stand, so all you have to do is strap the stand down to the deck of the trailer. That's always a problem with transporting aircraft parts, is they're fairly fragile, and you know, it's like, how do you package them and transport them without damaging them? So here you can see you put chains on the stand. Well, obviously you wouldn't put a chain over your airplane.
No, I don't think so.
I've seen it done though. So here we got the convoy together. We have the I believe there was 2 sheriff's vehicles, one in back, one in front, and a couple of the other guys coming along bringing more of the parts. So here we've made it to the airport, back it into the hangar. Same procedure we did with the wing. Go in far enough, we'll use the chain hoist. Actually, we have 2 hoists on the beam to lift from. So we on this one we actually didn't use both hoists to take it off the trailer. We borrowed a forklift that was at the airport, so we ran it under. Okay. We used the main hoist to lift the engine end of the airplane, and then we used I believe we used the forklift on the tail again. Yeah.
This whole process looks time consuming.
Yeah, this it took us several hours to move the fuselage up to the airport. And, here you can see on this one, we've got it lifted up, kind of the same thing. We've got to do the dance here. We're able to slide
Get it off the truck and then
Yep.
get the truck out of the way.
Yep. So here we lifted it up and then just pull it sideways off the trailer. And the truck can drive out. Set the fuselage back down. The advantage with the forklifts, of course, is they're a lot quicker than running the chain hoist. So that's kind of the challenge here. Is we have to, it took a lot of time to run the hoist up and down, but the forklift could do it a lot quicker. Maybe not as safe.
Did you put the wing on the next day, or was it a couple of days before?
It was like a day or so later. So we picked the fuselage up with the two chain hoists and did the same thing at the shop, slide the wing underneath on the wheel. So here we've got the two pieces bolted together. We're pulling the little stand out from the bottom of the wing and set the tail back in the cradle that we've had it in before, and then we can move it around in the hangar wherever we need to.
Looks like the wheels are off the ground. Oh yeah.
Yep. So we had on the little moving carts. They're not rated for a lot of weight, so we use them just to support the weight of the wing. So once we decide to take the chain hoist off, we have to pull the carts out and then lower the hoist. So, yeah. At this point, there's probably 3,000 pounds a piece on the main wheels, and the little transport carts, I think they're only rated for 1,200 pounds or something like that. So here we've got it all sitting on its wheels, the propeller on it, all the big pieces are there. Now it's just time to finish hooking up all the little stuff.
Where do you get a new engine from for this plane?
Well, they haven't built them, of course, since 1945, but people have just collected, engines and stored them away. Also, all the engine shops have inventories of used engines and new parts, and some parts they're having to be made new because they just don't exist anymore.
So it's not a big problem getting an engine for a P-51.
just wheelbarrow loads of dollars is all.
A wheelbarrow full of dollars?
Yeah.
Can't even imagine what that is for an engine.
I think pretty much a base overhaul now is somewhere between $150,000 and $180,000 after you already own the engine.
Just to overhaul it?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So your per hour cost is relatively high because usually you can count on about 600 to 800 hours TBO.
That's it?
Yeah. They're trying to get it to where 1,000 would be reliable, and that's kind of what the program with this engine.
What wears out that only allow you to get 600 hours on it?
Well, pistons, rings, valves, pretty much top end stuff is the problem.
Because it's just so much power?
Well, a lot of it's just, finding an operator that knows how to take care of a piece of equipment. Typical of any piece of equipment, doesn't pertain just to airplanes, but some guys are hot rods and some guys take care with what they're doing.
Okay, I'm looking at a couple of levers on here. What am I looking at?
Yep, the shiny silver one is throttle lever with the transmit button for the radio. And
This one here?
Yep.
Transmit button is where?
On the bottom side, kind of the bronze colored.
Okay.
Then the red one, of course, the mixture control for setting either your shut off or run position.
Okay. And this?
Then that is the friction lock. So it has two friction locks, one for the throttle and one for the other two levers. That way you can leave the throttle loose
but fix the other two. And then, of course, the prop lever's up top ahead of the throttle.
This is right up here.
Propeller control.
Okay. And going down here to this.
And those two levers are the bomb releases. So they had a mechanical release and a electric release, depending on which. So if your electrics got shot out, you had a way to get rid of your bombs or drop tanks.
Okay. As I go back to the side here, I have a switch panel here.
Yeah, in the switch panel, there's one of the cockpit lights for the left side, landing light control, and then they call air controls for the radiator. So there was the oil cooler and the radiator for the engine to cool it. So it had an automatic position or manually open and close.
Okay, and this?
And that's the rheostat for the cockpit light.
Going down below, it looks like trim.
Yep, below is what we call the trim console. That houses the elevator control, the rudder control, aileron trim. It also has the forward of that down low is the handle to retract the landing gear.
Is this here?
No, forward.
Here?
Yeah.
That little thing is for the landing gear?
No, those two there, that's air controls. That controls airflow into the engine. One of them is what we'd call a carburetor heat control, and the other one is ram air or filtered air, because they had air filters for running in dusty conditions.
And she said that's the flap control, is it not?
Yep, so that's landing gear.
Landing gear, mechanical landing gear.
Yep, so it has rod systems that hooks to mechanical locks plus the hydraulic valve to retract the landing gear.
It's a little hard to see. Now we're back to the vent controls here again.
Yep, and behind the vent controls, which way down in the hole, there's a little yellow handle. Off the back end, which is the flap control handle.
Down here.
By raising and lowering that handle moves the flap.
Boy, that is small.
Yep.
Okay. This is the standard instrumentation. Let's start down here behind the control stick. There's a big panel of some sort.
Yep, so the main electric panel there is for the engine controls. So it has the magneto control switch, switches for fuel pumps and supercharger, starter, primer, stuff like that.
What's the pull lever for?
The pull lever there, that's the, we call it hydraulic dump control. So it dumps your hydraulic pressure. So say your landing gear is stuck in the up position and you want to relieve it, you can pull the handle and it relieves the hydraulics.
And these, I get my leg out of the way, these two items here.
Yeah, and the other side is your fuel selector control. So there's a shut-off valve to completely shut off the fuel to the engine, and then there's also a selector that determines which tank you pull the fuel out of.
And up here is standard gauges, I guess, all airplanes have. That hose is attached, that's an oxygen hose?
Yep, so it had a oxygen system in the airplane. There was 4 tanks in the back of the airplane, and fed with 2 sets of lines to the front, and with check valves. In case one got shot out, you still had a supply of oxygen to get you home. Above that, there's a big red handle. That was your emergency canopy release. So if you need to bail out, you'd grab that handle and pull it, and the canopy would fly off the airplane, and you'd undo your safety belt and jump over the side.
I see a little red button on here or something.
Yeah, a little red button. There was a light system on the airplane that they call the IFF lights, and it was another signaling device to people on the ground. And so you could set a code of 3 different colored lights, and then you could push the little button to flash the lights at them. And so they had a red, green, and amber color. You could have them either on all the time or flash it.
And we get down here, we have the headsets. We remove the headsets for what's behind it. Looks like there's...
Yeah, so behind there is the main electrical switch panel for the airplane. So the other panel we looked at was for the engine controls, and this panel is more for the rest of the system. So the generator control, gun heat, pitot heat to heat it. Pitot is where they measure the airspeed at, so they didn't want it to ice up and freeze up. So and there's also amp meter to see how the output of the generator is working, and position lights.
We have a fairly large handle here.
Yeah, and that handle, that's the crank that closes and opens the canopy.
Okay. And down here we have, what's that red area?
The red area, they had, it says danger on there, and there's nothing, no buttons. It used to have, or on the earlier airplanes, it had a set of buttons in there that you'd push them, and that would short out some of the circuitry in the radio so that the enemy couldn't copy the radios or figure out how we communicated with each other. So that was just a destruct system.
And this looks like circuit breakers.
Yeah, and then the box behind it is actually the control box for the radio. So in the day and during the war, nobody knew what actual frequency you were on. All it had was channels A, B, C, D. So in your briefing, it would say, well, meet up on channel A, and so the pilot would just take off and he'd push A. And I think partly that way the spies wouldn't know what frequency you were on a mission. So they always reported that a lot of pilots got lost because they couldn't find themselves on the radio. Well, what had happened, the crew chief would actually, or like somebody anyway, I don't know if it was for sure the crew chief, but they changed the crystals in the radio because you only had those 4 choices. So they would change those out. So if they put the wrong one in, then the pilot would push the channel that he was supposed to be on, but it would be a different frequency, and so you'd get lost.
I noticed now the control stick, is that locked right now?
Yep, control stick, it has a locked position, so when you tow the airplane, the tail wheel will free swivel on the airplane. It keeps the controls locked, in the wind.
Now this may be a little hard to see because it's kind of close, but the camera has to shut down. But we have, looked like a forward observation through a lens or something on you.
Yep.
Is this a compass or what?
This is the gun sight. So it was a reflector gun sight, so there's an angled piece of glass above it, and a light projects from the bottom and projects the crosshairs up on the screen.
Okay.
And the sight that's in this airplane is what they call the N9 version. It's an earlier version. The later K-14, which most people are familiar with, had a gyroscope in it, and this one was just a pure light. So when you were shooting at somebody, you had to do it all by your brain and your eyesight to get to them.
What's the scale for on here?
I'm not enough familiar with the sight to know exactly what that is.
Some kind of measurement device.
Down on the floor, you can see there's a hole in the floor, which is actually the fuel gauge. It had a mechanical float gauge in it, so it was just a real easy way to do it without having a bunch of electric systems. And then just below that, in the frame, there's a little round knob on the floor, and that's your heater control. So it was a liquid-cooled airplane, so it pulled the hot air from behind the radiator in ductwork, brought it up under the floor, and run that to defrost the windows or for cabin heat. It had 2 separate controls for that.
Did the pilots ever have any personal weapons on them if they had to get out of the airplane? Did they have a rifle or a pistol available to them?
Well, the pilot probably would have had a pistol on him, whether it was a revolver or 1911, one of the two. I'm sure.
On his uniform, you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
And then also in the airplane there was what we call a signal pistol. And so they had a way of firing flares for either out of the airplane, or if they'd crash landed and went off in the brush somewhere, they could have a pistol to signal for rescue. So they had a pouch in the side of the airplane here in the map case where they actually stored the gun. And so we have one, and
I thought it was a 1911.
it's just what they call, I think this is an M8 pistol. And so it was really simple. It just opened up, and you took your flare cartridge and you stuffed it down in there and closed it back up, and it was ready to go. And so it had a mount in the airplane, so you could take and hook it on the mount, and then it would go in there, and you'd open it up, put a flare in it, close it, and fire it. It's pretty tough to use when you're actually flying, and so a lot of them, you'll hear stories about, when they crash landed and they didn't want the Germans to get any information out of the airplane. They'd take this gun out of the airplane and they'd load a shell in it and they'd fire it in the cockpit, and it was I'm sure a magnesium-based flare, and so it would just set the airplane on fire and burn it up, and that way they'd destroy anything that the enemy could use against you. Also over in this same corner, this was also the map case, and they had another little section which they call a drop message bag. So there's a bag and a little pouch here that if you wanted to drop a message to somebody on the ground, whether your ground troops, you could write a little message and stuff it in this bag, open up the canopy, and throw it over the side, and hopefully
got to your people and not to the enemy.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, you bet.
Are those bombs real and metal, fiberglass, or what?
They're a fiberglass replica of a 500-pound bomb. Here we hired a guy from down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to come up and do the nose art on the airplane. So to put the pilots' names and crew names and name on the airplane. You know, during the war, all this was hand painted on the airplane. So we wanted to do that, and so this guy he does this kind of thing as a hobby, I would say. So we did kind of the artwork to try to figure out what it was supposed to be laid out like during the war, and then he came up and painted everything and did all the little detail work.
What patience?
Yeah, he was there for I think 3 or 4 days to do all of the paint work on it, and we can see in the original photos of the airplane that it was done in over a series of days too. The lettering SueII on its name changed in a couple of the original photos we have of it during the war.
Now, this citation, Cessna citation, is bringing in the owner of the airplane for inspection?
Yep, so this is the day we were going to run it for the first time after it was restored, and so the owner wanted to be there to be there while we ran it, and so we didn't know exactly how it was going to go, whether he wanted to run it or wanted us to run it. He previously owned a P-51 for about 3 years' time, and so we kind of gave him the tour of the airplane, showed him all the details, and he kind of decided he wanted to start it for the first time, and so we gave him a little coaching and did a good job of it.
I see you're talking to him. Is he asking you questions, or are you just giving your opinion what's happening here?
Yeah, he's just asking questions about details on stuff. He'd been up, obviously during the process to see the airplane, as it came along, but here near the end of the project, he was really busy, so there was a lot of the detail that he didn't get to see finished at the end, and so that's kind of what he's checking out, is all the little detail that it took to finish it. So. And kind of his direction with the project, he was fairly hands off. He knew we knew what he wanted. This airplane actually did fly combat in World War II, and of P-51s, that's pretty rare. There's only maybe a dozen left that did that, and so it's in its original paint scheme, and he wanted it to be as accurate as possible. Is basically what he told us to do. So
now, they didn't paint the aircraft during the war because it took too much time and the weight also?
Yeah.
So basically a time factor that don't paint it, get it out the door.
Yeah, a lot of the early airplanes, they did paint camouflage, just for that reason, for camouflage. The later airplanes, they, as the war progressed, we gained control, air supremacy, so they figured there was no reason to camouflage anything, and I'd say it's just the expense and time, weight, on the airplane. So a lot of the airplanes later in the war, they didn't bother painting them at all, and so that was part of the reason that we did a lot of reskinning on the fuselage, is that we wanted it to be, like brand new aluminum, what it would have looked like during the war. A lot of airplanes now, if we would have saved the original skins on it, we probably would have had to have painted the airplane, and it just wouldn't have had the right look. A lot of people will take an airplane like this and they'll actually polish the aluminum to a high shine. It'll almost look like it's chrome plated. Well, of course, during the war they didn't do that, but they were very pretty when you do that to them, but that was not the intent of this one, is to try to leave it. So when you look at the aluminum surface, you'll see there's some areas that are shinier than others. Well, some of it we restored, and the aluminum itself, when it comes from manufacturer, has a very different finish. And what happens when they finish the sheet, it runs it through a roller, and that's how they get it to thickness. And whatever the surface on the roller is whatever the surface will be imprinted on the material. So whether it's a brushed finish or a polished finish, is all determined by the manufacturer in that rolling process. So here we've brought the airplane out, got it fueled up and ready to go. So
now, I understand you only run it up for 20 seconds And you do this 3 times. Why is that?
Yeah, on the airplane,
Hang on. Well, the reason we didn't have any audio there, everybody wants to hear the sound of a radial engine starting up, especially one like this. Well, I shouldn't say radial, an engine like this starting up. Now, you run it up for 20 seconds. Why not longer?
well, the way that the cooling system's designed in the airplane, it holds more water than you can actually put in it to start with. So there's an area in the cylinder heads that the water has to be pumped up into. And so what we do is we run it just a short period of time, then we add more water. And back in the radiator, where the guys are working here, there's a drain that drains air out of the top side of the radiator. So you have to let that air out, then add more antifreeze to the expansion tank on the front of the engine, and then so you do that process approximately 3 times to burp all the air out of the system. Otherwise, you're short about anywhere from 3 to 5 gallons of.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of a time-consuming process. We could have done all of this before before the owner came to do it, but he wanted to be there to see the first start. So it's like, well, this is the way we're going to do it then.
Now, I understand that this engine is not designed to be taxied for long ways and overheats for some reason. Why is that?
Yeah, of course, on the airplane, the whole idea is to make it go fast, and so you want the least amount of drag. So the engineers just, decided how big to make the radiator.
What happened? Not enough fuel?
Not enough fuel.
Is there a primer for this?
It has an electric primer, so there's an electric pump that runs, and then you have a solenoid valve with the amount of fuel you put into it.
Anyway, the cooling of the aircraft. If you taxi too far, it overheats?
Right, because the radiator, the engineers made the radiator as small as possible to do the job while it's in the air, because that's the whole idea. So on the ground, if you run it for an extended amount of time, it can and will overheat. Of course, here the weather was fairly cool, but you take it in the middle of summer, go into an air show, and see how guys get hot.
He's doing the first taxi here?
Yep, so once we got all of the air out of the system, he decided he wanted to go out and taxi it around a little. Obviously, you can see there's a few pieces missing on the airplane yet. The front part of the air scoop, the head of the radiator, isn't on the airplane yet. We still hadn't quite finished making it, or restoring it. The spinner on the propeller is off. That's missing because we wanted to make sure that there was no leaks in the propeller once we installed the propeller. So.
What'd you pick the propeller up with? By hand, much guys, or lift?
We did that with the lift also. There's the threads that hold it on there. You have to be very careful not to damage the threads putting it on, so you need to be real precise how you handle it.
You mean the propeller screws on?
It has a shaft that's probably, I think, 3.5 inches in diameter, and it has some heavy splines, and then on the end it's threaded for the nut, so it slides on. The splines do all the torque work, and then there's a nut on the end that you tighten that retains it on there.
Okay, the test is over.
So, what are they trying to do? Yeah, hope they stop, yeah.
And he's heading for home.
Yeah, it was a quick trip. He was on a business trip. I believe he was down in Nebraska somewhere. And so he just made a little quick side trip to come see what was happening. Come perform the test run for us.
Interesting side trip from Kansas to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Not exactly a little round the corner.
Yeah.
This young man standing here, I don't know his name, Paul was talking to him. He's pretty fascinating, and in a moment you'll see him let this young fella get into the airplane and into the cockpit. I can imagine what went through that young guy's mind.
Yeah.
He had no idea he was going to be able to go inside here. And it was pretty nice of Paul.
Yeah, that's part of what we do. You just want to introduce as many people as you possibly can to aviation. It's a lot of times nowadays you go to an airport and there's a big fence and a big sign that says "keep out" or "we'll send you to jail." Well, it just discourages so many people from becoming involved in aviation. And so any chance we get, it's great to introduce kids to aviation and see what it's all about.
Well, I bet this young man couldn't wait to get to school to show some of the pictures his dad took of him sitting inside the cockpit of this jet. What an experience for a young person. I got $100, says he'll take flying lessons someday. Well, after all these events of starting the engine, it was time for a little bit of lunch and some conversation before the owner had to head back to Minneapolis and I guess on to Kansas.
Look at that.
What you see behind me here is a P-51 Mustang known as the Sierra SueII, which has been completely rebuilt by Air Corps Aviation of Bemidji, Minnesota. Today is a special day. It's Veterans Day, and we're at the hangar at Bemidji Airport to say goodbye to this airplane. And on top of that, we've invited a lot of World War II veterans to come and see this plane.
That bin right there, I need to. You guys have any information on here?
They were when this was in the war was when they were crossing the line.
Yes.
If you were crossing the line, you could have seen this one 70 years ago, maybe.
The World War II veterans that were in the homes had a special bus to bring them out to the airport. A little later on, you'll see about 25 World War II veterans standing in front of the airplane for a photo op.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Glad you're here. Fingers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Sierra SueII party for the P-51 Mustang. Who am I talking to?
Lester Johnson.
Lester Johnson. Were you a pilot, Lester?
No, I wasn't.
You were in World War II?
In Europe.
In Europe, and
during the Battle of the Bulge, and from there on, clear to Czechoslovakia.
The Battle of the Bulge to Czechoslovakia.
All the way across Germany.
How much time did you spend in Europe?
I spent about 11 months.
Were you there when the war ended, or did you get to go home?
Yes, I was.
How did you find out that it came to an end?
It trickled down.
Oh, okay.
It was several hours after it was over when we were notified that it was over.
And then what happened next? Did you go back to your barracks, or what did you do?
I can't remember, but our outfit moved back into Austria, and from there into Germany. And shortly after the war, I ended up in the hospital with diphtheria.
You got through the whole war without being shot, and you end up with that.
That's right.
Jeez.
I had several near misses.
Doesn't count. Inch away.
Yeah, that's correct.
How do you know? Did you hear it go? Did you hear the bullet go by you?
Well, that's kind of a popping sound. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard a bullet go by me, but it was hunting. It sounded like a bee. Zip.
Yep. Right.
I don't know how close it was, but it got my attention.
Yep. Oh, yes.
Well, welcome to today's party.
I saw a lot of these flying above us, escorting the bombers. So.
Nice sight if they have something like that over here.
Oh, yes.
They call them the tank busters or something when they first came out?
I think the P-47s were the ones that were supporting us on the ground more.
How'd you hear about today's special party?
Kim here mentioned it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect day for it. Well, I'm going to walk around and see who else I know.
Yeah.
Okay, Lester.
Well, thanks a lot.
Okay, talk to you
We
again.
thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, it's worthwhile. It's a hell of
I'm
a good
sure
project.
it is.
It's a chance to tell the story of our veterans while they're still with us.
Well, I'm 92 and I hope I'm around quite a while yet.
Well, I got a few years to go. I'm 76.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Thank you.
I'm one of the owners here at Airport Aviation and the manager of Airport Aviation.
So tell me, what kind of exciting thing is going on today?
Well, today we are having an open house event for all veterans and especially World War II vets, because of course our business is restoring World War II airplanes, so it's pretty close to us. So.
That's an interesting business to be in. Is that an interesting field of work?
Yes, yeah, it is. We're pretty unique. We're probably one of about 15 or so shops in the U.S. that restore World War II airplanes. Yeah.
Tell me about the Sierra Sioux, this plane.
So Sierra Sioux is a P-51 Mustang, and this airplane is an actual combat vet, which is fairly rare for these airplanes that are surviving. Most of them were scrapped out and not brought back to the United States. And Sierra Sioux actually went from World War II, 9th Air Force, to Sweden, and then Nicaragua, and then back to the U.S. So it's a rare airplane because it's an actual veteran airplane. So.
Is it one of the rarest of its kind?
It is. Yeah, P-51s are pretty common World War II fighter. By common, I mean there was about 15,000 built. There's about 300 airplanes that are surviving in museums or flying. And there's about 150 flying, and there's roughly 10 or so that are actual combat vets. So.
This is not something you see every day. What's it like to have this in Bemidji of all places?
It's great. It's been a dream for me to be able to work on these airplanes and be involved with the people and these folks that are here and meet them and all that. And so to have it here in my hometown where I grew up is really exciting. And
personal connection with this plane at all?
Yeah, for me, the story is I got interested in aviation, building models. My older brother was in the Air Force, and he got his pilot's license when he was 17, and we flew down to an air show in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, at Flying Cloud Airport, and I can still remember this particular airplane was the first P-51 that I remember seeing, and I still have photos of that day, so pretty neat for me to have it come around full circle and actually get to be part of the restoration of it, so, yeah.
What was the restoration process like? Tell me about it.
The restoration on this particular airplane was very tedious, I think is a good word. The goal from the beginning was to make it the most authentically restored airplane to date. And there's been many P-51s restored, and that's a pretty tall order. And so we did everything we could as far as recreating and finding original parts and making the airplane exactly the way it would have been when it was flown in the 9th Air Force. The original radios from World War II are in the airplane and working. Really, we could go on for days with all the detail, from top to bottom and inside and out. So, very difficult. Lots of research and lots of love from all of our employees at Air Corps, and lots of dedication to do that. So.
How many years did it take?
It was about a 3-year project, so which isn't entirely uncommon. Some of these projects with these types of airplanes have went on for many, many years. So, yep.
Let's see. What sort of, do you know what kind of mission this plane would have had back in its day?
Yeah, this particular airplane, Sierra Sioux, when it was in the 9th Air Force, it was primarily used for ground attack. So not so much escort missions, but ground attack and other just kind of missions close to its base. Yeah.
What will happen with it after today? Will it be housed here, or?
This particular airplane is actually owned by a fellow from Minneapolis, and he also has a place he stays out in Montana. So it'll be between Flying Cloud Airport again in Minnesota and out in Montana. So,
I would imagine that it'll be on display more.
Yes. People will be able to see it if you're down in Minneapolis. He has a few other airplanes in his collection, and he, as most of these owners of these airplanes, this is what you see here is what it's all about, really important to them, and that's why they're willing to spend a lot of money and have a lot of patience to have these airplanes restored. So.
There's a lot of, mechanics and things that go into it, but is it really just about bringing that history back to life?
Say that one more time.
There's a lot of mechanics that go into it, but is it really just about the history and kind of bringing that back to life?
There's so many things that's rewarding about getting to work on these airplanes. The history, meeting these people and having a personal connection. World War II, there's so many lessons that we can learn today from that time. People working together, all had the same mission in mind, and it was everybody was involved, not just the soldiers. And so as people who restore these airplanes, we kind of get to find out about that story quite often. Rosie the Riveters. Interesting part of it, most of these airplanes were built by women and minorities, and they worked in the factories, and because the men were off at war, and so it's a really neat story that isn't always told. So.
What other projects are you guys working on?
We currently have another P-51, an earlier model that we're in the middle of the restoration on, and as well as a P-47 Thunderbolt, and some other smaller projects too that are coming here. So.
Is there anything else you want to add at all?
Just we're thankful for all of our vets, and we appreciate their service, and we're glad we could have them all out and celebrate that today. So, thanks. thanks everybody for coming out. We appreciate it. We're here to honor the vets, and so we've got a lot of them here. And so if you have a chance and you can identify one, give them a handshake and tell them thank you for everything they've done. And we would like to take a few minutes and first round up all of the World War II veterans that we have here and get them in front of Sierra Sioux in this area. And we'd like to take a picture and get some video of all those folks. And then if they would stay put, and then we'll get all the veterans in the room that we have, kind of fill in around with them, and we'll get a picture with all of the vets that we have here today to kind of recognize those. As well, for any vets that are here, we've got free t-shirts for you, so grab a t-shirt. And we'd just like to say thanks again for everybody, and thanks everybody for coming. And give a vet a handshake and say thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going 3. 1,
Bud? Oh, the day's not over yet.
Day's not over yet. That's good.
Larry Hagstead, Bemidji, Minnesota.
Larry, what brings you here today for the P-51 party? How'd you know about it?
Well, we knew about it through our car club primarily, and we watched the construction of the plane piece by piece, collecting the parts, putting it together, doing the research. Fantastic project.
And this is the final send-off before it goes to its home base, I guess.
It's beautiful, yes.
Now, I see by your hat you were in Vietnam. How much time did you spend in country?
In country, 1 year, 365 days, October 1968 till 1969.
What kind of unit were you with?
We were in the 8th Target Acquisition Battalion, 25th Artillery. We put in survey control points for the gun batteries primarily, give them more accurate and masked fire on the enemy and protecting our troops.
So you were involved in targeting. That means you had to be way up in country to see where it lands.
Oftentimes we were there. We weren't forward observers, but we put control points in where targets might be acquired and also around the base camps to protect them from enemy attack.
You said 365 days. That's in exactly 1 year.
Yes.
What happened the last day then?
Well, I was supposed to go home 364 days, but the plane we took, we called them Freedom Bird. That went off the runway and into a rice paddy, so we had to stay 1 more day in country, which was memorable.
And why was it memorable?
Well, this was at Benoit. We had a mortar and rocket attack that night, and we just hunkered down in the bunkers, and I thought, well, after all this time, I'm not even supposed to be here. But we survived the night and got out of country the next day.
Chase, good to see you again, Larry.
Great. Thanks.